Hello, everyone. Today we will be talking about the first colonies in the Americas. The three colonies that we'll be talking about are the New England colonies, the Mid-Atlantic colonies, and the Southern colonies. And as we're going along, make sure you're filling in the blanks in the notes. We're going to start off just exploring the New World. The Spanish, French, and English were the first countries to explore the New World. We're going to begin with the Spanish, and the Spanish looked to gain land and riches. They looked to convert Native Americans to Christianity, in particular Catholicism. However, the Spanish, they conquered and destroyed native cultures, so that just means the Spanish did not treat natives well, and they forced natives into labor and forced them to convert religions. And the Spanish were concentrated in the Caribbean, Central, and South America. They often had violent interactions with natives, which resulted in the natives' loss of land and death in large numbers. So a lot of Native Americans died because of the conflict, but also because of diseases like smallpox. And this graph right here shows you that there originally was a lot of Native Americans in the United States, but due to war and mainly because of diseases, in particular smallpox, their population goes down and a lot of Native Americans died. The next country we're talking about is the French exploration, and they settled in Canada and the United States, the central United States, and they traded with natives and were seen as partners. So the French, they got along with the natives. They're one of the few countries that did. However, this did not lead to large-scale immigration from France. So a lot of people from France, they never ended up moving to the United States, So as I was saying, the Spanish and English, a lot of them did end up moving to the United States, but the French did not. Okay, next we're going to talk about the English exploration. And they were mainly commercial ventures. That meant when the English came to the Americas, they were looking to make money. They were also seeking religious freedom. A lot of Protestants, for example, during this time, England was very strict. You had to belong to the Church of England. So if you were Catholic or Puritan or some other religion, you were to be persecuted. So a lot of people moved here for religious freedom. And English were initially friendly with the natives, but they became violent over land. So a lot of the English wanted to take the land. And they claimed territory in the eastern portion of modern-day United States, and then they eventually expanded west. But it started off in eastern United States. So now, remember the three colonies I was telling you about? There's the southern colonies, the mid-Atlantic colonies, and the New England colonies. Virginia belonged to the southern colonies, and it was settled by people seeking economic freedom. So these people weren't really seeking religious freedom, but they wanted to make money. They wanted economic freedom. And some of the early settlers were Cavaliers, and these were English nobility that received land grants from the king. So essentially, they were rich people who received lots of land from the king. So people in Virginia, their southern colonies, they didn't get small farms. They had giant, huge farms, and that's what was the Cavaliers. There was also a lot of poor English immigrants also came seeking better lives as small farmers or artisans and settling in the Shenandoah Valley or Western Virginia. So Jamestown is located in Virginia. And what it is it was the first settlement in the British colonies. So essentially it's a city. And it was the first one. And it was established in 1607 as a business venture by the Virginia Company of London. So the Virginia Company of London came here. They set up the city because they wanted to make money. That was the big deal. Remember the Columbian Exchange? They wanted things like tobacco. They wanted to go make money in Europe. And the key word with this next part is it was the first permanent English settlement in North America. Permanent. Permanent means it never left. It's still there today. So it's the first permanent English settlement in North America. Jamestown almost fell due to lack of supplies, poor weather, and a poor location. Where it was located, it was swampy. That just means there was lots of water on the ground, so it wasn't easy to farm. They didn't have a lot of supplies, didn't have a lot of water, and the weather was bad. And poor English immigrants agreed to work on tobacco plantations for a period of time to pay for passage to North America and southern colonies. And tobacco was grown and a profit was made, bringing more settlers and money. So is the tobacco was being grown, being brought back to Europe. People are making money. Eventually, more people came here because they were like, wow, if I go to Virginia, I can make money. And the first Africans were brought to Jamestown in 1619 to work as slaves on tobacco plantations. So this is where slaves are starting to be brought. And there's something called the Virginia House of Burgesses. It established by the 1640s. It was the first elected assembly in the New World. And it has operated continuously and is known today as the General Assembly of Virginia. But you're going to see this a few times this year, the Virginia House of Burgesses. It was the first elected assembly in the New World. So now we're finished with the southern colonies. We're going to go all the way to the north to the New England colonies. And they were settled by Puritans seeking freedom from religious persecution in Europe. So Puritans it's a type of Christianity, but in England and in Europe, if you're a Puritan, you were persecuted. A lot of people didn't like you. It was tough to get jobs. So they came here because they wanted to practice their religion. They formed a covenant community based on the principles of the Mayflower Compact and the Puritan religious beliefs, and were often intolerant of those not sharing their religion. So just a covenant community just means it was based on the Mayflower Compact, and it was really based on their religious beliefs. However, New England colonies were intolerant. So if you were not Puritan, they didn't like you. If you were Catholic, you would not want to go to the New England colonies. If you were Jewish, you would not want to go to the New England colonies. The Puritans were intolerant. And Puritans also sought economic opportunity and practiced a form of direct democracy through town meetings. Direct democracy just means everybody votes on decisions. So one thing, the United States, we mainly have a representative democracy. We elect people to make decisions, but in the New England colonies with the Puritans, it was direct democracy. Everybody voted. So if they wanted to trade with somebody, everybody would meet at a town meeting and everybody would vote. Next, we're going to talk about the Mid-Atlantic colonies. We talk much less about them at the moment, but they were settled by English, Dutch, and German-speaking people who were seeking religious freedom and economic opportunity. So you had a lot of Catholics that moved here, Huguenots, Jews, people that were being persecuted in Europe and in England, so they came here for religious freedom. But they also wanted to make money. And labor needs. So many labor needs were initially met by indentured servants. These were poor people from England, Scotland, and Ireland who agreed to work on plantations for 4 to 7 years in return for their passage, which is a boat ride, or payment of their debts. They were free after working 4 to 7 years. So let's say you lived in Europe, you were poor, and you wanted to come to the United States. What you would do is you would find a company and say, I don't have any money, but I want to come to America. So they would say, okay, well, we'll put you on a boat, we'll take you here, we'll pay for everything, but you have to work for me for 4 to 7 years. But the big thing is, after 4 to 7 years, they were free. They were able to leave, they can start a farm, which is much different than slavery, which we're going to talk about next. And eventually, labor needs came to be met by the forcible importation of Africans, which is slaves. Slaves were forced to come to the colonies and they would never become free. So they would kidnap people from Africa, bring them to the United States, and slaves never become free. You're a slave your whole entire life. If you have kids, your kids become slaves. Indentured servants, remember, they wanted to come here and they were free after working. But slaves did not want to come here and they were never free. And the first Africans were brought against their will to Jamestown in 1619 to work on tobacco plantations. And the growth of an agricultural and mercantile economy based on large landholdings in southern colonies in the Caribbean and trade in the New England colonies led to enslaved labor force. So as agriculture, farming became very big in the American colonies, so did slavery. A lot of slaves were being brought to the colonies to meet that labor need. And this system led to the introduction of African slavery in British North America. So this is mainly the southern colonies. If you remember the Cavaliers, they got large land grants. They had huge farms, so they needed people to work. And they were bringing in African slaves. If you guys have any questions, let me know.